sea mist rolled off the English Channel in early August 1346, carrying the acrid scent of pitch-soaked hulls and the low thunder of drums that kept 300 ships rowing in measured cadence. Above fluttered Edward III's royal standard, a golden lion flanked by fleurs-de-lis, proclaiming that England's king had come to stake an ancient claim to the throne of France. When the fleet beached near Saint-Vaast-la-Hougue and thousands of boots splashed onto Norman sand, it was less an army than a moving city of ambition. Knights in enameled plate, archers in jerkins of boiled leather, pikemen, masons, smiths, and priests. At the heart of this host rode a youth of 16 whose black enameled armor would one day earn him a legendary sobriquet, Edward of Woodstock, the Black Prince. Edward III's 1346 expedition was not intended merely to joust with fortresses. It was designed to bleed France by fire. Within days, the English columns fanned across the green quilt of Normandy in a ruthless chevauchée, raiding towns, burning granaries, and unhinging the economic engine that financed King Philip VI's armies. Villagers fled before smoke pillars that marked each night's encampment. The king's scribes tallied barrels of wine, bolts of cloth, and chests of silver seized. But beyond material gain lay a psychological harvest, the assertion that no corner of France was safe from English reach. The Black Prince rode at his father's side, absorbing lessons of war he would soon apply. Far to the east, Philip VI felt the sting of violated homeland. The Valois monarch, burdened by debts and pride, summoned his feudal levies with urgent letters sealed in wax, the color of blood. From Brittany, Provence, and the gates of Avignon, banners converged on Paris like migrating birds. Genoese mercenary crossbowmen answered the call, famed for their steel cranesquins and pavises the size of cellar doors. Nobles boasted of chargers clad in caparisons embroidered with golden suns. Yet gathering an army of such splendor consumed time. Time Edward spent carving scars across the map of France. Meanwhile, the Seine shimmered like a silver barrier ahead of the English advance. Paris lay only 50 miles beyond, but bridges bristled with French garrisons, and news arrived that the main French host had begun to shadow Edward's column. The English king turned north, intent on reaching the safety of Flemish allies and the port at Calais. Hunger gnawed. Flour stores had spoiled, and archers chewed horsehide to keep jaws working. Still, discipline held, anchored by the charismatic presence of the Black Prince, whose youthful laughter and campfire glow belied a growing steel in his gaze. Philip pursued in a crescendo of dust, determined to crush his rival before he slipped free. Scouts reported the English baggage crawling like a wounded serpent along narrow lanes, its rear harried by French vanguard. Every river crossing became a gamble. Finally, at the Somme's tidal estuary, Edward found bridges burnt. With French cavalry closing, retreat threatened annihilation. Local fishermen, coaxed by coin and fear, whispered of a hidden ford at Blanchetaque, passable only at low tide. On the night of 24th August, moonlit water receded, and the English splashed across waist deep, driving off a small French force guarding the bank. Dawn revealed the army safe on the north shore, banners dripping seawater, every man acutely aware of deliverance by a hairbreadth. It was St. Bartholomew's Day, the feast of a martyr flayed alive, an omen some took as promise of French skins flensed before the campaign ended. 2 days later, Edward halted on gently rising ground south of the hamlet Crécy en Ponthieu. The plateau sloped westward to the little river May and eastward into woods of Crécy, natural bookends that narrowed any approach. Wheat stubble had been trampled by local harvesters, leaving hard ridges perfect for anchoring defensive stakes. "Here we will await them," the king declared, dismounting first to show his intent. Trenches were dug, wagon tongues locked, and primitive ribaldequins, iron tubes bound to wooden frames, positioned to spit lead shot. It would be Europe's first major battle where gunpowder spoke with lethal authority. That night, rain drummed on canvas as English priests moved among ranks absolving sins. The Black Prince, assigned command of the frontmost division, tried to sleep beneath an oiled cloak, but every lightning flash painted spears like skeletal fingers against the sky. He rose, strode the lines, and found archers adjusting hemp bowstrings over embers for gentle warmth. "Rest, lads," he urged, voice steady. "Your you will sing loud enough come tomorrow." Few Englishmen doubted it. Legends of Crécy's arrow storm were already half written in their minds. Dawn of 26th August 1346 broke humid and bright, steam lifting from sodden earth. Edward arrayed his forces in 3 battles positioned like steps on an amphitheater. The prince's division nestled lowest on the forward slope, 8,000 archers flanking 2,000 dismounted men at arms. Behind, Sir Reginald Cobham and the Earl of Northampton formed the second line. Edward III retained the third atop the ridge, a living gauge of reserves. Wooden stakes angled outward before arrowmen promised skewered horses to any who charged. By mid-morning, dust spiraled on the southern horizon, where Philip's army rolled into view, perhaps 30,000 strong. Trumpets blared as azure banners of France unfurled, golden lilies shimmering. Knights boasted of smashing the upstart English in a single thunderous charge, while pages loosened saddle girths. Philip, his eye irritated and swollen from travel grit, burned to avenge the chevauchée, but counsel counseled delay until rear columns closed up. The king's temper outran prudence. He ordered the Genoese crossbowmen forward to open the engagement, dismissing concerns of fatigue after their forced march. The Genoese advanced, 6,000 in all, pavises slung on their backs, crown-esquins cocked. As they reached effective range, a sudden squall billowed across the field, blowing dust and rain into their faces. Bowstrings slackened. Quarrels flew short. In contrast, English longbowmen removed spare cords from oilskin pouches, restrung quickly, and loosed a first salvo that darkened the sky. Arrows arced in lethal parabolas, whistling like angry hornets, striking shields, mail, and flesh. The Genoese ranks wavered, raised a ragged cheer to mask fear, and fired again, ineffectually. Philip's impatience flared. Riding among his mounted nobles, he mistook the Genoese falter for cowardice and, according to chroniclers, shouted, "Kill those rascals! They hinder our advance!" French knights spurred forward, lances leveled, trampling their own infantry in a muddy tangle of screams and splintered pavises. Mud sucked at hooves, showering manes with muck. Archers re-stringed and unleashed 10 shafts per minute, arrows punching visor slits, bursting through valve joints at armpit and groin. Horses crashed, momentum died, and the once proud charge dissolved into a milling slaughter ground. Yet bravery and arrogance proved relentless. Wave after wave of French chivalry thundered uphill. urged by honor codes older than the stone cathedrals of Amiens. The slope funneled them into dense knots where artillery barked, small but terrible, iron balls ricocheting to sever legs and shatter morale. The Black Prince stood near the standard of the ostrich plume, directing troops with calm beyond his years. His shield bore fresh nicks. His surcoat was spattered crimson. A thrust, unhorsed Sir Aymer de Valence beside him. Squires dragged the wounded away while the prince resumed command as if born to the chaos. Mid-afternoon, a French contingent under the Count of Alençon smashed into the prince's battle with ferocity that bent but did not break the English line. A messenger galloped uphill to Edward III, begging reinforcement. The king, leaning on a war hammer, supposedly asked, "Is my son dead or hurt?" "Neither, sire," came the reply, "but pressed right hard." Edward looked across carnage shimmering in heat haze and said, "Return to him and tell him I give him no aid. Let him win his spurs today." Thus legend forged itself in the furnace of necessity. The Black Prince fought on, bloodied yet unyielding, earning chivalric rite of passage by steel alone. One of the day's most poignant moments came with the fall of King John of Bohemia, blind monarch guided into battle by loyal knights who tied reins of their horses together so he might strike once more for honor. English chronicles record finding the horses still bound, their rider a silent testament to courage. The prince took John's ostrich feather crest as badge, adopting the motto, "Ich dien, I serve," binding humility to valor for generations of princes of Wales. As sunset tinted clouds the color of spilled wine, the French offensive collapsed. Bodies carpeted the incline. Banners lay trampled in gore. Philip, wounded in the jaw, was dragged from the field by bodyguards while his golden train of oriflamme retreated in tatters. English pursuers, exhausted, gathered prisoners among flickering torches and listened to the moans of thousands. Chroniclers would claim up to 1,500 French knights and counts slain, including the flower of Valois nobility, against barely 300 English dead, a statistic ripe for legend, though impossible to verify. Through the night, thunderheads rolled over Crécy, their lightning unveiling grisly tableaus. Crossbow pavises riddled like honeycomb, cannon barrels still smoldering, longbow shafts standing in corpses like ghastly quills. The Black Prince walked the field with clerics, offering water to foes, tears streaking soot on his cheeks. War had baptized him, but not hardened his conscience beyond compassion. Dawn broke on a world irrevocably altered. The myth of mounted knightly supremacy lay shattered alongside splintered lances. Longbowmen, yeomen, and shepherds wielding 6-foot yew had humbled Europe's mightiest cavalry, while gunpowder spoke a new dialect of fear in martial tongues. Crécy's lesson would echo across centuries. Technology married to disciplined tactics could reorder social hierarchies and warfare alike. Strategically, the victory opened the road to Calais, whose siege would anchor English power on continental soil for generations. Politically, it legitimized Edward's claim to be more than marauder. He was a king chosen by God's verdict on the battlefield. For the Black Prince, laurels of Crécy cloaked him in glory that followed him to Poitiers and the zenith of English fortunes in the 100 Years' War. Yet even as balladeers began composing verses of Edward the Younger's day, survivors knew the cost. Many an arrowman would limp home to shire cottages with wounds that never healed. French widows would light candles beneath cathedral vaults, praying for souls lost to ambition and stubborn honor. And somewhere near the ridge, where artillery smoke once curled, a farmer would stumble upon a rusted cannonball half buried in clay, a mute reminder of the day modern war's seeds were sown in a Norman field. Years later, chronicler Jean Froissart wrote that the English rejoiced and gave thanks to God for the happy conclusion. Historians, more skeptical, catalogue supplies, tactics, and topography, but Crécy's heartbeat remains human. A youth in black armor grasping destiny, a blind king riding to certain death, and archers who turned forests into storms of steel. Their intertwined stories form the tapestry of our past, threads of valor and vanity, innovation and injustice. Thus ends the tale of Crécy, an August day when the skies darkened with arrows and the future of warfare emerged from smoke and thunder. The plateau still lies quiet beneath fields of barley. Yet, if you walk there at dusk, the whisper of shaft in flight seems to rustle the grain, and the distant roll of wheels upon chalk may recall gun carts pushing into position. It is the echo of 1346, the rise of the Black Prince, and the reverberation of a world learning that courage alone no longer decided fate. One needed wisdom, discipline, and the keen whistle of the Longbow's supremacy to bend history's arc toward victory.